what do you see that separates out the best athletes from even just your average person? You know, this kind of stuff fascinates me. We do see people with great work ethic, and we see a lot of that. But like from a physical standpoint, a lot of times, you know, an athlete might be 6'8", 250, like LeBron James, right? And there's really not much you can do about that. And obviously, LeBron James works very hard on top of being a specimen. But what kind of like freaks do you run into, and what's like kind of what are some of the things that you notice that's a big difference that stands out amongst the kind of cream of the crop?
Yeah, I want to give credit to Andy O'Brien for this. Andy's Sidney Crosby, amongst a handful. He works with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but he's like the premier strength coach in the NHL. And speaking with him, I've kind of changed my thought process, and it really comes back to like control, right? Like being able, most great athletes, there's a handful of outliers, but most like the LeBrons, the Jordans, the Gretzkys, the Crosbys, the Mannings, the Favres, the Bradys. It's about control. So it's about being able to, like, if you look at most of those guys' resting heart rate during a game, it's likely 20 to 40 beats lower than the rest of the people on the field. So their ability to control their parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, obviously being in a more parasympathetic flux, that allows you not only in the moment to be more efficient with your resources during the actual competition, it allows you to recover better when you're training, which allows you to train more and build a greater capacity, right? So I really think, not to go straight down to the central governor theory, but I think large in part is parasympathetic control. And some people just do it innately, right? Some people are just really good at being a little bit more mellowed out, for lack of a better term. And some people know it's something that they need to work on, and they focus it as a part of their training. Like, I don't know what LeBron spends. It's something to the tune of like $2 million a year on his like physical support staff. And I would imagine the majority of the implementation that's getting spent on is inhibitory parasympathetic, right? Like the days of just, and that's the crazy thing with powerlifting, right? Like I've never once seen like nose torque on the bench anywhere, but yet, just the red ammonia caps behind the ears. Like, wouldn't that be hilarious just to see, I don't know, who's a good pitcher? The kid like Bumgardner on the mound. Hold on, guys. Here comes 109. Like,
right.
It's the ability to go or stay low when everyone else is high, right? Like it's almost this: if your enemy's close, and I can think you're far. If you're far, I think they're close. Like, it's the art of war, man. Like, it's really an interesting subset. Like, you said LeBron is a specimen. I would argue, and I've never seen his like HRV data or anything like that, but I would say what makes him a specimen is if you take another guy who's 6'8", 280, and you run him up and down the court, the energy and the amount of stress that person, the neurochemistry of a person, anyone else who does that is going to be vastly different than his. So his ability to stay, cool under pressure, like those clutch guys, those career guys, those legacy guys, it really comes down to that control.
Do you think it's like I got this type of situation? Like, I'm good enough for this? Like, it's maybe a belief system. Like Anderson Silva kind of comes to mind, like when he was back, pulling off like tricks that you'd see like in the Matrix, and he was just knocking people out. And it seemed like he had an ability to slow everything else down. I've heard Jordan talk about, like when he was young, he talked about being like a puppet master and how he controlled everything on the court. He controlled the ball, which controlled the guy who was guarding him. Like, it was crazy hearing him talk about it. And he could make someone fall down if he wanted to, with the way that he could dribble, the skill level. So I'd imagine that a big part of it is probably, the skill set that they have, and B, having some of that physicality, like a Shaquille O'Neal, it probably makes you just feel more comfortable, and then therefore maybe relaxes you a little bit.
I would imagine it would have to be like a compounding effect. And there's a domino that falls first that I think you absolutely, like, if you've ever read like Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, or where it's like, the kid who's 6'8", like I grew up with a kid who's 6'8", he was 15 years old and he was 6'8".
Jesus.
He got the best coaches. Oh, he's a freak. He broke my hand with a slap shot in the warm up of a game when I was 16 years old, and I was wearing a blocker.
Jesus.
Like, this kid was ripping 100 miles an hour as like a 16-year-old kid. Yeah, but he got the best coaches. He played on the best teams. So for him, a lot of it just came from his physicality. Right. So someone might have the natural instinct to stay control. He was a space cadet. Like, this kid would drop someone said something about his sister, he would kick their ass, like, not in control at all. But he got enough opportunities that he actually became good. And that built the confidence that he then could go like, okay, look, if I needed to, like, if I can manipulate and control these variables. So I think the change in that process is whatever the impetus is, right? I think some people have the control that allows them to build the confidence, and then that confidence then further begets the control, and then they're just sitting there playing a different game, right? Like, Silva's such a great example. I still remember when he came out to that. What was the? I think it was Bill. It was either, I think it was a DMX version of "Ain't No Sunshine." This guy doesn't speak a word of English, and he's just kind of sitting there like singing along. I'm like, that is terrifying. I literally like stood up and went in the other room and peeked around the corner to see if he was still walking out. But it's like, because he's just like Tyson, right? Like Tyson, if you've ever watched the Spike Lee thing, and I think he said it on numerous occasions, was like, you could tell before they ring the bell when the guy breaks eye contact that he's already won, right? And it's that, and whatever it was with Tyson, it may have been a physicality thing. With Silva, it may have been a control thing. But all of these things culminate to a point where they're literally just playing another game.